Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Leap Is Live. We're here at the Children's Network of Southwest Florida. Of course, when we come here, the accommodations are always outstanding. Shout out to them. We have a guest here that I always love getting on the show, and it's the timing is apropos for Chris Routte, the coordinator for Crime Stoppers of Southwest Florida. Welcome back, Chris.
Hey.
Let me bump you in. Trish, I made a mistake and said Chris. Hey, Trish, first of all, you're here at the Children's Network of Southwest Florida, and they do a lot as a safety net for children who might get left in the cracks, get adopted, or foster care, just the whole thing for Southwest Florida for a lot of the children that may fall on hard times as a result of life. Having a safety net like that in our community with what you do, you can see how different crime situations can impact children. They need to be taken care of. I mean, their relatives might go to jail, huh?
Absolutely. Well, and that's part of the reason that Crime Stoppers is here, is so that people have a safe way to submit tips on things that they see that's going wrong, things that they know that's going wrong, but they don't want to get directly involved with it. Like, they don't want to get involved in somebody else's situation, but yet they see a child that's being neglected or abused. So by contacting us, they can report that information. We are immediately going to get it to law enforcement and in the hands of places like the Children's Network, so that there can be follow-up and that these children can be protected. So,
Right.
it's one of those things. People often just think of Crime Stoppers as, robberies and homicides and burglaries, but we also are taking care of the children of our community
Right,
as well.
because you have to get them to somebody to take care of them. Would that be called the state? Get them to the state?
Yeah, we work in tandem between law enforcement and DCF. So if there's a situation where somebody is reporting information and it turns out that child is in an unsafe environment, there's drugs in the home, there's violence in the home, abuse in the home, then we work with our partners at DCF and law enforcement so they can work together to make sure that every child in our community is taken care of and in a safe place where they can live and thrive.
That's great, because if they report the crime, saying maybe I don't want to report that going on over there because the kids might not, but y'all all that works together, that gets handled.
Yeah, and I get, especially in a situation like that that's involving children and potentially drugs and violence, people don't want to necessarily inject themselves into somebody else's family situation. They don't want to get involved to where they're now a part of the problem. But whereas if they just contact Crime Stoppers and say, here's what's happening, this child that lives at this address, here's what I think is happening. And that doesn't mean we're going to bust down the doors and arrest people. It just means that immediately an investigation is going to start between DCF, between law enforcement, to make sure that child is okay. And if they're not, we're going to make sure that they are placed in a situation where they are no longer exposed to the drugs, exposed to the violence, exposed to the abuse. So,
trafficking too.
And traffic is a huge issue in our community. And that's why we need people to be the eyes and ears. We need people to report the things that they're seeing in a safe way, where they're not, like I said, injecting themselves into a situation, but yet they're doing the right thing and potentially saving a child.
And they can do that anonymously in various ways, without people even knowing their identity. And along that way, there may be some cash. They would get some cash if the crime is solved, or if you conclude that criminal activity has been there, an arrest. Walk me Sesame Street me through that.
So we pay out our rewards based on an arrest, obviously, or like, say if it's a drug tip and we go in and law enforcement is able to seize narcotics. May not have to necessarily have an arrest, but if narcotics are seized, we're going to pay out on that tip. If there's a conclusion to that tip, which leads to some kind of action. We were just talking about, children and neglect and abuse. If we have a tip that says, hey, this child is in a dangerous situation, that child is removed, we're going to pay out a reward on that. Now, typically with tips like that, people are calling in that information because it's the right thing to do, because they're concerned, they're genuinely concerned about this child, not necessarily about the reward. We're happy to pay the reward. We're anxious to pay the reward. But there are a lot of people that actually just call Crime Stoppers because it's the right thing to do and they want to see something take place without them having to get actively involved in that situation.
And you've said before, and I just want to give you a chance to expound on it, is that there's a certain way to contact Crime Stoppers direct. But if it's an emergency or something like that, you still want them to call 911, but they won't be entitled to the Crime Stoppers money.
Right. So if you call 911, and there is absolutely a time and a place to call 911 if something is emergent, something happening right now where someone's life is in danger. But if you call 911, even if you say you want to remain anonymous, they know who you are. They have a way of tracing back. So you can't be protected, so to speak, if you call 911. Whereas if you contact Crime Stoppers through our hotline, the website, the app, you are 100% anonymous. There is zero way that anybody can ever figure out who you are. We don't record calls. We don't have, like, if you submit your tip online, we don't have any way to trace your IP address. Like, you are literally anonymous. We give you a code number. That's the only way that we identify you from beginning to end. That's how we follow up and communicate with you. And then if your tip leads to the payout of some kind of a reward, again, we're going to go back to that tip number. We deal with a local bank. You go to the bank, you give them a code number. They don't ask for your ID. You walk out with cash, and it's over.
The range of cash varies, but give me a general idea.
So in a school case, like if there's vandalism in the school or a threat in the school, it could be, $100 or so. Then we go up, our maximum is $3,000, which would be for a homicide. But now, very recently, we expanded that to $5,000 for cold case homicides. Cold case homicides are very much more difficult to solve because of the length of time and the different complexities with the cases. So if we make an arrest on a cold case homicide from a tip, we now pay out $5,000 for that.
Mm-hmm. Generally, how long does it take a person to get the money? Say, give me a scenario.
So once the arrest is made and the reward is approved on a weekly basis, within a week.
That's fast.
Yeah.
That's fast.
Now, because we know that, if someone's going to take the time to submit that tip, we don't want them to have to wait, a month or two. No, we're going to make sure that within a week, at the longest, a week.
And we never here in Southwest Florida Crime Stoppers structure had an anonymous person to be identified.
Yeah, never, because
100% go.
100%, because at the end of the day, I can go to court, put my hand on a Bible. I don't know who our tipsters are either. We never take down any kind of identifying information if people call us on the phone. We never say even like the male tipster or the female tip. Like, we don't put down any identifiers at all. And we do that simply for the protection of our tipsters, because we've been doing this for 43 years now in Southwest Florida. And not once has the identity of a tipster ever been known. Not that people haven't tried, up to and including law enforcement. Sometimes they'll call and they'll say, listen, we know you know who this is. We really need to get in touch with them. I don't know who they are. So that tip is just that. It's a tip. It's a tip given to law enforcement so that law enforcement can go out, investigate, hopefully substantiate that tip, make an arrest, put the bad guy in jail, and we can pay the tipster cash.
We're here in a little sunny Southwest Florida, palm trees everywhere, nice water. The birds are chirping and the mangoes are blooming. No crime happens here. So just tell me, in tongue in cheek, but tell me in a realistic way, what are some hot things right now that are happening and we need to really help the law enforcement by keeping our eyes open?
The big things right now: drugs, narcotics. And this is happening. And yes, you are absolutely right. We live in a beautiful area, Southwest Florida, best place in the world to live. However, there is no community that is immune to crime. There's no community immune to drugs. It's happening. And drug dealers will oftentimes go to the nicer communities because, it's a gated community. No one's going to look for them there. Stuff happens in every single community, in every single facet of Southwest Florida. I don't care what community you live in. So if you see something in your neighborhood, people coming and going to an address, middle of the night, they're staying for 2 minutes. Who stays for 2 minutes? Like, if you're going to visit with somebody, you're going to stay a few minutes. So if you feel like, I'm a big fan of gut intuition. If something doesn't feel right in your gut and you think something may be happening, call us, let us know, because that thing that you just doesn't set right with you could be somebody running, heroin out of your neighborhood. So if you make that call, we can get the drug dealers out.
Opioids. I think you said that was, how does that get, that's a drug in a sense of what?
So the drug dealers are, the scary thing with opioids is that the drug dealers are trying to make a higher profit margin. So they're cutting things like cocaine and they're lacing it with fentanyl. Fentanyl is cheaper for them. However, anybody that watches the news, fentanyl is so deadly. So people that are going out there and say that they're buying cocaine and they think that they're using cocaine, well, that cocaine most likely has been laced with fentanyl. We are seeing overdose deaths in our community to a record that I've never seen.
Really?
It's super scary. And most of the time it's from people that don't know that their cocaine or whatever drug that they're using is laced with that fentanyl. And because it's cheaper for the dealers to mix into the drugs, we're seeing, people that are using drugs for the first time. We've seen so many in the hospitals. First time they ever use, drugs, I'm just going to use cocaine as an example, and they end up in the hospital in the ICU because it was laced with fentanyl, and that fentanyl will kill you. You don't know what you're getting when you're going out there buying the drugs. So the bottom line is we need to eradicate the community of the drug dealers. So if you have any information, if you suspect anything going on drug-wise in your community, you owe it to your neighbors and to your community as a whole to report the information.
People, a lot of things spin off of the drug world, right? Additional crimes, robberies, homelessness, just a whole lot of things spin off from there, right?
Absolutely. And because people, it's a system that perpetuates itself. To get to the drugs, you have to have the money. How are you going to get the money? Well, you probably don't have it. So you're going to commit crimes. You're going to break into people's homes. You're going to commit business burglaries. You're going to rob people. So it all is one big, vicious, ugly cycle. And again, love our community. I've lived here almost all my life, but it happens. And the best way that we can get a grip on what is happening is by getting involved and not burying our heads in the sand. Say something, the old phrase, if you see something, say something. It's true. If you see something, say something. You don't have to get involved. You're going to make your community a better place, quality of life for every single one of us and our children. And if you can put some cash in your pocket at the same time, why would you not do it?
How about hit and runs, accidents, those types of things? Always a big deal.
Hit and run. If you are a driver licensed by the state of Florida and you get into an accident, whether it's property or a human being, you are mandated by law. When you sign that on the dotted line and get your license, you're mandated by law to stay on the scene. We have so many hit and runs people are hitting cars, people are hitting property, people are hitting people. We have so many pedestrian, people on bicycles, e-scooters, and then they just take off like nothing ever happened. Season's coming up. You know what that looks like here.
Right.
So many more people on the road. If you see any kind of an accident or crash where someone is hurt or there's property damage and somebody takes off, get anything you can get. Partial license plate number, what the driver looked like, the type of car, the direction that they headed in, any kind of information, because most of the people committing these hit and runs, they live right here in our community. We just need to find them.
That's where that cell phone can be pretty valuable, huh?
Oh, and that's where, so our mobile app, there's 3 ways to contact us, but the mobile app, the P3 Tips app, you can literally, if you see a hit and run, you can take a picture with your phone. You can go onto that app, you can upload the photo right then and there. And the quicker that we can get that information to law enforcement, the quicker it is that we're going to be able to find these people, hold them responsible for what they did. We get with hit and runs, a lot of times it's drunk driving and people are like, well, I don't want to get busted for a DUI, so I'm just going to take off. Well, the moment you take off, even if you're not impaired, if you take off, now you're a felon because you have left the scene. Whereas even if you're intoxicated, stay on the scene because maybe it wasn't your fault. If you're impaired and maybe it was somebody else's fault, so you may end up in trouble for a DUI. But when you take off, you're going to go to jail for a whole lot longer because you fled the scene.
Unbelievable. The school is back in. Before we get out of here, just what are some things that may start ticking, or we need to know about when when kids and colleges and everything are flocking back together?
Over the summer we had an uptick with burglaries because kids were out of school. I think we're going to see that take a little bit of a downturn now that kids are back in school. They got homework to do. But the big thing right now is, remember, schools are in. We go back to the hit and run thing. A lot of these young children are at bus stops super early in the morning. It's dark, and kids are kids. They may not necessarily stay, crisscross applesauce where they're supposed to be. They may wander into the street. We need to make sure we are being very careful, especially in the early morning hours of the bus stop areas. Make sure that you're watching out for these kids. And if, Lord forbid, you happen to get into an accident, stay on the scene. Can't stress that enough.
Give that website where they can go for all information.
1-800-780-TIPS,
Okay.
www.southwestfloridacrimestoppers.com, or the P3 TIPS app.
How do you remember all that?
Doing this just for a minute.
I got you. Well, Trish, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thankfully.
Looking forward to getting you back.
Absolutely.
Miami might have the oranges, but Crime Stoppers of Southwest Florida has got the
juice.
Let me bump you out. Let's see. There you go. Hey, Skinny, let me ask.
Lee Pitts Live is a Lee Pitts Enterprise production.
Hello, everybody. This is Lee. I'm so glad that you watched that particular show. And if you enjoyed that show, we got other shows like that. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Watch Lee Pitts Live on demand anytime. And also hit us up on all our social media platforms. Just type in Lee Pitts Live, and there you go.